Hi, I'm Ali and welcome to the China Repair Studio. Now today I thought I would do a continuation of our beautiful Femelle Rose 18th century porcelain figure, and in my previous tutorials I have actually cleaned her up. I've stabilised her with some special glue and filled her in a little bit, sanded her, and she's ready for the next stage, which is painting. So I thought it would be fun today to do a little bit of painting by hand. Now, looking at her with this part here, to be honest, I would probably use the airbrush, but when it comes to the bits here we can see here, I am going to use just a paintbrush by hand, and also on this lovely, this sort of lovely sort of celandine green. Now, before I do, if you haven't subscribed before, please subscribe, please like, and also please share. Also, I do have in the description box down below a Udemy course and also a website, so you can actually buy products from there. So let's get going. Right, so as you can see, we have our figure here, and I have started to mix up the paint. Now I did mix it, as you can see, on a white plate. Now if you're going to be mixing, I would highly recommend mixing on a white background. So much easier to see the colour, and you can just dip into bits and pieces, and once you've done that, you can actually, if you want to, just put them into small bottle tops. You don't need to. If you want to, you can just go by a plate. Because we're only using small amounts of paint, using it on a plate, just mixing around until you get the right tone is fantastic. I would highly recommend. Now you'd also need some water and to wipe your brushes, so we need some paint brushes. I do have a pipette here which I mix when, just dropping bits of water on, so much easier. Now it's really important also to have some ceramic glaze. Now this one is from Rustin's, and I do decant it because it's quite pricey into a small jar here, and it does last for a very long time, but it does dry out very quickly, so it's easier to just now and again, use from this jar to this small jar. So just, decant it if you can. Now the colours I've mixed up, first of all, I think we go on this lovely celandine colour, is a mixture of primary yellow. I also used some, and I actually did mix powder pigment with acrylic. There's no hard and fast rules, you can mix them together if you like, depending on what colours you've got. And I used this Winsor & Newton cerulean blue colour. And this is an acrylic, and it's a professional acrylic. If you're going to buy any acrylics, try to buy the professional range because the colour hue is so much better. So I've used a bit of that, and I think I added a tiny bit of white in there as well. Now when it came to this colour here, this lovely blue colour, again I used the cerulean blue, and I mixed it with a tiny bit of white and a little bit of the yellow ochre, just a tiny bit, just knock it back slightly, and I think that was all. Cerulean white, yeah, and just kept mixing it, getting it right, the right quantities. First of all, I just mixed it with water, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of glaze into the paint. Now what that does, it actually locks the colour, the paint, onto the item. If you just painted on there, it would be fine, but it would come off quite easily, although we are going to glaze afterwards. But if you can mix a bit of glaze with the paint, it just latches on better. So I'm just going to take the glaze here. Now you could use a cocktail stick, or just something small, just to sort of, a spatula, just to add on, but I'm just going to use a cocktail stick, so you only need a small amount, literally a drip or two, and then I'll add another drip or two to this colour as well. Now when you are painting, it's always a good idea to make sure that you have your surfaces you've put something on there such as kitchen paper or an old towel, just to make sure you don't actually colour anything underneath. So let's get going. Let's get to the light here. Now let's have a look. I can just see here it needs a little bit, and I'm just going to work along. So just mix, that's the colour of the blue before I get too carried away. Let's say we don't need much colour because we're just going to do the lines. Let's just mix that a bit there. You can, because it's, you know, if I actually used a airbrush on this, because there's lots of different tones to it, it would look very flat. So, you know, you can use your finger, you can use your brush. It's got lots of different tones, you know. So, and it would have been probably it would have been hand painted in the first place. So I'm just going to start on this corner here, this bit here, and just start on the edge. To say, it doesn't need to be too precise. So you can always use your finger to smudge it slightly. You can use your finger with some water as well if you want to smudge it a bit more. And then just keep going along. You can always build up the colour. You don't want to make it too much, otherwise you're going to end up with ridges. So just a little bit. So there, just smudge it along and just blend it through. Again, if you can get good light as well, if you can try to be close to a window, it's really quite useful. You can see there it's. Now I'm doing it this way because, apart from the fact it would have been hand painted, not everybody has access to an airbrush, which I do realise. So, you know, if you can hand paint, it may not have such a great effect, but if you can blend it in, you know, it just takes more time. So just blend it through. You could actually blend it through by just dipping it in some water and then just edging it out, feathering it at the edge, if you can see. And that will just blend it so you don't have any ridges. So if you get the water and just blend it through. And it really is just trial and error. That's better. As I say, it wouldn't have had any edges there. Right, just dry it off. If you can always have a spare piece of kitchen roll, is quite useful as well. Now the paintbrushes I like to use tend to be a sable brush or a mixture of sable. They are softer and I do find them a lot easier to work with. And we can always go back and keep adding to. If you think, oh, that's a bit lighter, it's a bit dark, you can always go through it again. But we've got the good base to it now. Again, I'll just add a bit there. You don't want any drip marks, so keep going across and keep looking and just trying to blend through. It's quite therapeutic, really. I can see there's still a line there, so what I'm going to do is a very small brush, just add to. And then just feather out. So you just got to keep building up. Feather out. And I'll start to feather it out a bit. Right, now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to now work on this part here, which is this beautiful cerulean blue colour. So if I just wash the brushes, never leave brushes in water as well, just very quick hint, tip, because otherwise you can ruin your brushes. So once they've been washed, do take them out of the water. Right, so here we are, we have the blue colour now, starting to dry a bit on me, but we can get cracking on that. So again, I think I'll just work with the line, and then we can just keep work, and then we can work out and keep building up. See there? Again, water, actually I use some clear water there. And then just start to feather out the edges so you don't have any ridges. Again, you can use your finger. And then just make sure it's dry again. And I'll just keep using this process, just going along the ridge and then feathering out. And just keep smoothing out. And I just want to show you on this part here, again, I'll just take the colour Another thing you can do is once you've actually painted and it's dried, when it comes to the final glaze, you can actually add just a bit of colour pigment to the glaze, and that will just blend it through with the rest of the colour, which is always quite a useful thing to do. So you can see it's just starting to blend in now. Go through that line and blend it through. And it's so useful. If you can use a glaze, it really does help lock in. I'll use my finger and blend it through. If you do find it starts to go liney like that, again, just dip your finger in some water. Don't want it too wet, but then you can just soften any lines. And once that's dry, we can keep going back and adding more and more pigment and more paint. It's getting dry, so I'll show you on here. Now you can use a larger brush, but I like to keep it really in control and use a smaller brush. As I say, this is more time consuming than using an airbrush, but I do realise, as I said before, that not everybody has airbrushes. You can always get a brush with some water and just blend it through. Oops. But it's basically just building up colour and just very, very gently keep building the colour up and keep blending, keep pushing it out slightly, fanning it in a way, so it's not in a big line. You don't want to just get your paintbrush and put a line across, otherwise you're going to see that line. You actually want to feather it out so it just blends through with everything else, but it does take a lot of build up and time. On there. Now I just want to show you the technique for the glazing, because it's literally, because it's such a fine amount, it is literally dry. And actually, I think I might just... So we have a tiny bit of our colour left in, just a little bit. So what you could do, I just want to demonstrate on this part here, is you can actually take some of the ceramic glaze. Now if you can't get hold of rust-ins, depending on which country you live in, I think Winsor and Newton do a ceramic glaze as well. Now when you're mixing, when you're just glazing an item, if you add water with it, it won't be so shiny. So it depends. If your item's slightly muted, you just want to add a tiny bit of water to your glaze. Not too much though. But because this is highly shiny, very shiny, I'm just adding it with a tiny little bit of that colour. Because that will just, again, it will just tone it all the way through. Now, when I do a glaze, I always use a flat brush rather than a brush like this. I do find it tends to help, and it does distribute the glaze better without lines. So I'm just going to show you. I've got, where are we? Let's get one here. Again, a nice sable one. I think I've got one there actually, thinner one. Okay, so here we are. So a nice flat brush, and as you can see, I've mixed the glaze with the colour. So if I just take that here so you can see, and then I would just go over, and that would just help blend it in. There we go. As you can see, we've got some green here, so we can add the green in afterwards. And then just blend it in. Again, if you think afterwards you need to put more colour on, that's fine, just add a little bit more colour. But it does blend the two colours in if you use the coloured glaze, or the glaze with a tiny bit of the colour in. If you can see there. And that just really finishes it off quite nicely. Again, I'll probably let her dry, and I'll probably go over her with some more colour afterwards. But I just want to give you the rough idea of how to do it properly when you are just not using an airbrush and you are just using brushes. So I hope you enjoyed this video today. Again, please subscribe, please like, and please share. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.